Hello, I'm Richard Exley with today's reflection. Some years ago, I was under contract with Thomas Nelson Publishers to write a book on overcoming temptation. They titled it Deliver Me. And when it was released, the Crossing Book Club picked it up. I don't mind telling you that this is probably the most profound book I've ever written, and likely one of the most helpful. Early on in the writing process, I received a call from my editor. He said, Richard, that story about goose hunting with your father is not going to work as an analogy for temptation. You write about it as if hunting geese with your father was a rite of passage, and it's filled with good feelings and all kind of nostalgia. That won't work for temptation. If you want to write about the goose hunt as an analogy of temptation, then you need to write it from the goose's perspective. Whoa. I don't mind telling you that I thought that was a crazy idea, but I told him that I would think about it. When I finished the call, I went in search of my wife. I said, sweetheart, you're not going to believe what my editor just told me. He wants me to write the story of goose hunting from the goose's perspective. She thought about it for a moment, and then she said, wow, I think that's a great idea. What? I'm not a goose. I've never been a goose. I never will be a goose, and I'm not writing it from the goose's perspective. With that, I left the room in a huff. For the next 2 or 3 hours, I sat at my desk trying to write, but I just kept wrestling with that thought. Finally, I decided to call a couple of guys whose opinion I trusted, and to my surprise, both of them said they thought writing from the goose's perspective was a brilliant idea. So, I ended up doing it. And I don't mind telling you, I think the idea was brilliant. Well, in retrospect, I think the idea was brilliant. With your permission, I would like to read it to you. We've been flying since the first hint of daylight. Oh, remember, I'm writing it as if I were a goose. We have been flying since the first hint of daylight, and the sun is now far down the western sky as we circle the body of water far below us. Though we have ridden a fierce north wind most of the day, weariness makes our wings heavy. Twice we have bypassed promising lakes after being alerted to danger by our experienced leader. He is a magnificent bird, well past his prime, but he can still fly with the best of the young geese. He has been my mate for many winters. For the most part, we've had a good life, flying north to Canada in the spring to hatch our young, and then back south with the first hint of winter. But twice, we lost offspring to the deadly guns of the hunters. Through the driving snow, I now see a cluster of geese huddled against a marshy bank at the far end of the lake. Being surrounded by grain fields, it promises not only a sheltered resting place, but sustenance as well. We will not find a better place to spend the night. Of that, I am sure. Mordecai leads us in a wide circle around the end of the lake and the adjoining field, alert for any sign of danger. Though I see nothing to cause alarm, I cannot shake a nagging sense of dread. From the lake below comes the faint honking of geese at rest. It is the all-clear signal. but I take no comfort in it, nor does Mordecai. Well do I remember another day, not much different from this. We'd ridden a cold front out of Canada, and as the sun slid down the curve of the earth, we set our wings and began a long glide toward the water below. We were about to touch down when two hunters emerged from beneath a sheet of white canvas with guns blazing. Instantly, Mordecai veered left, his wide wings clawing the heavy air as he fought for height. Our firstborn was flying on his right wing, just behind him, in tight formation. When Mordecai veered left, he followed, taking the full load of shot intended for his father. I watched in helplessness and rage as his lifeless body folded and plunged into the water below. Other birds were dying too, 5 in all, but I had eyes only for my firstborn. The hunter's guns continued to boom a moment more, spitting orange flame and deadly shot into the indigo sky above the slate-colored lake. I took a couple of pellets in one leg, sending a flash of burning pain to explode my brain. But it was nothing compared to the awful ache in my heart. Riding the winds, I followed the others into the safety of the wide sky. But when they turned south, I lingered behind. After they were gone, I continued to circle overhead, just out of range of the guns below. I watched as the hunters began slapping each other on the back and shouting with glee before splashing through the frigid water to collect their prey. This is on my mind as Mordecai leads us in ever-tightening circles, and on his as well, I'm sure. He's never been able to forgive himself for that earlier debacle, though what he could have done differently, I do not know. The fact that our firstborn took the shot intended for him has been nearly more than he can bear. Although everything appears to be in order, Mordecai hesitates still, generating a rumble of protest from some of the young males. They resent Mordecai's caution. But those of us who have known the terror of the hunter's guns appreciate it. Suddenly, Absalom, a two-year-old goose of magnificent proportion, breaks formation and begins a long glide toward the water below. For a moment, no one follows. Then 4 or 5 of the younger birds give chase. Mordecai hisses a stern warning, while the flock emits a scolding chorus. Both are ignored. As they run against geese near the water, the marsh grass seems to explode, ripping the pale evening sky with jagged apricot flashes. Absalom takes a full load in his chest and crumples in a tangled mass of blood and feathers. Behind him, the young geese veer off in all directions, frantically pounding their wings in a desperate attempt to escape the hunter's rain of death. Some hug the water, while others seek the safety of the sky. Jonathan takes a hit in his left wing and lurches crazily before plunging into the lake. Abigail is down, as is Esther. Only Obadiah escapes, and he carries pellets in his legs. The hunters emerge from a well-concealed blind, clothed from head to toe in camouflage gear. One of them spots Jonathan, who is trying to hide in the tall marsh grass. Taking aim, he shoots him. Jonathan dies while we watch in stunned disbelief. There's nothing we can do. So Mordecai turns once more toward the south, and we fall into formation, death having left several jagged holes. Below us, the hunters remove their decoys, collect the bodies of our fallen comrades, and troop across the field to their 4x4. These many years later, I think that the parable of the geese is not just a story. It's a parable, an analogy of temptation. It provides, or I should say, the goose hunters provide deception by carefully placing their geese, positioning them to resemble geese at rest. They choose a place of shelter and sustenance, which makes me realize that maybe the devil is at his diabolical best when he tempts us to meet a legitimate need in a sinful and inappropriate way. Yet, I want to remind you that the Lord says that we've never been tempted beyond that which we're able to bear, but that when we are tempted, He'll make a way of escape that we may be able to bear it. Here's what experience has taught me. In the earliest moments of temptation, the way of escape is broad and easy to find. But the longer we delay, the narrower that way of escape becomes, and the harder it is to find. Let me counsel you. When you are tempted, find that way of escape and find it immediately. I'm thinking of the little boy asked his mother, "Mama, what is conscience?" She thought about it for a moment, and she said, "Conscience is that little voice inside of you that tells you when you're about to do something bad." That night when they knelt beside his bed and the little boy said his bedtime prayers, she overheard him pray, "Jesus, make my little voice loud." And so my counsel to you at the end of today's reflection, pray that prayer. Jesus, make my little voice loud. This is Richard Exley, straight from the heart.